Oh well. Right. No eating, Uncle Tommy.
No eating.
None of that sound. I'm not editing that out.
I'm not eating it. Thank God.
I'm hearing a lot of creaking in the paper.
Matter of fact, the spring's coming. I got to get ready for cycle season, so I'm really fasting, to be honest with you.
Neil just fast. Okay.
Gosh.
Hi guys. This is Naomi Minhas, and you are watching 50 Shades of Red at night. We have joining us per usual, Uncle Tommy. You can see him every Tuesday live on YouTube. Check our Instagram for times. Normally he's on at 7 p.m. And I will just briefly let Jack, a newcomer, explain who he is and, what he will be contributing.
Well, hello, everybody. My screen name is Jack Fables. As just to introduce my real name is Jacob Bullard, but I go by Jack Fables on the line. But what I want to do is give my own personal perspective on pop culture, and it's a libertarian perspective. Kind of in the middle, a little bit right-leaning on a lot of issues, but left-leaning on some, at least some social aspects. I want to, like I said, just simply give my perspective, just to show how culture affects politics and politics affects culture, if that makes sense. Whether it's comic books, movies, recent films, recent or popular books, literature, and eventually I want to also comment on the music industry, not just on R. Kelly, but just like, Cardi B, famous pop star, like that, how they use their influence on pop culture as well to push stuff. That makes sense.
Okay. I know you said something about comedy.
That's pretty much it. That's all I want to do. I want to just give my view and give myself a voice, and I don't represent all libertarians. Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, it froze on me for a second.
It froze on me too. Yeah, you were
You're freezing a little bit, but it's catching up now.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know you spoke on maybe getting into the comic book aspect. Fun fact, Solomon and I did a debate with this huge YouTuber who goes by Spider-Man, and he makes nothing but Spider-Man videos. They get like millions of views, but he does political debates. And I was like, why is Spider-Man reaching out to us? Like, this is so random. But we did a debate about Black Lives Matter, and very interesting, very interesting. So you guys check him out on YouTube. I think it's The Great Spider-Man or something like that. I'll try to link it in the description box. But we're doing Hot Topics again, and we're doing it because things keep changing so much every week. These last few weeks, it's like all this random stuff coming out, and we normally go in depth on one particular topic, but why not just touch a little bit on everything and start the discussion until we're able to obtain more facts about the topics that are being presented in the media. The media has not been giving us a lot of background on the top stories as of lately, so we can only do but so much regarding research when we talk about them, and we try our best not to give you a biased perspective, even though mostly our opinion is right-leaning. We want to give you a well-rounded view of the issues. But with that being said, we did a video a few weeks ago on 2020 candidates, and they were about the Democratic candidates. And then Uncle Tommy and I did a video on sexual scandals. Yes. Ironically, two similar things have appeared in the media this week, touching just a small amount on both of those. So we'll start off with the 2020 candidates that have been announced this week. I think the list is up to like 15 or 20 of Democrats running. Now just any and everybody's going to try to run. So Beto O'Rourke has announced he's running. That's not a surprise. When Solomon and I were talking about it, we actually liked Beto. We really kind of liked him. Not necessarily his views 100%, but just the way he carried himself. He seems like a genuine guy, very family-oriented type of guy. Just jump
in real quick. Was that the podcast that we did where they had the ratings of how they would pan out as candidates?
Yep. Yes. Yeah, where we kind of gauged the fan favorites, I guess. And it was a mock poll that was presented, and he was one of the favorites. Coming in at the top was Biden. Biden is going back and forth right now with announcing, is he not?
Mm-hmm.
I think he might be announcing, but I'm not 100% sure. But to be honest, I really hope he doesn't make it to the primaries, Biden. I mean, it's just so much controversy. He's basically a Democrat. That's basically a Democratic version of, well, I guess R. Kelly is a Democrat, but a Democratic presidential candidate of R. Kelly. He's got so many allegations against him. It's ridiculous. I mean, he's basically an atheist version of a pedophile from the Catholic Church. I mean, it's
So what are the allegations you heard? I just want to see like if
well, from what I understand, on Joe Biden, it's an old story is that he has sexual assault charges against him from children. He's inappropriate touching, unprofessional friendliness with children and children who visited the White House or guest speeches and such. It's just kind of like very uncomfortable. And then reports have said from the children that he made them feel uncomfortable. They weren't very safe with him, if that makes sense.
Like they just felt like.
Where is the source of the information originating from, or could it just be propaganda?
Politico posted about it, and they're pretty good when it comes to facts and speaking out about things. I mean, at this point, and I hate to be that woman, but I always say it, I'm not a feminist. I hate to be like, the Me Too, but can we really trust any of these Me Tooers? I mean, these kids are so impressionable nowadays. Anybody can tell their kid to say anything.
That is true. That is true. I can agree with that.
But I
agree with that.
I heard when he was in college also, that there was an incident that occurred while he was in college, like years ago. But my thing is, he's already been in a position of power, so shouldn't that have come out?
Yeah, that's the curiosity I'm raising, because now it's starting to come to the surface now, where it hasn't been coming to the surface in previous government issues, election issues. But now it seems to be the popular thing to do, in entertainment and in anywhere else, but particularly with Biden now. It's like almost like it's a sabotage on his character, so to speak.
And I hate to say it, but normally we don't hear about that from the Republican side. They're normally, I mean, they sling dirt, but they don't do any near close damage like the Democrats do. So
there's one or two. There was like if I remember, there was a Georgia candidate that Trump had supported. He had a couple of allegations, but that was like years and years ago, where it wasn't. From what I said, I think he was like the governor of Georgia was in his 20s, and the little girl he was with was like a teenager, but under the age of consent. But still, that's like one person. I mean, it seems like the majority of it, like you said, is on the Democrat side, than it is on the Republican side, and that's crazy.
Well, when was this? As of today at 1 p.m., because no one was sure this late in the game if Biden was going to even announce. It was pretty up in the air, but Biden is playing it smart. He waited so long because he wants to see how much people are expecting him. He wants to gauge if he has a shot,
Right.
And he does, because Black people loved Obama and they associate Biden with Obama. When you go on media sites like the Shade Room and things like that, Black people are just in the comments, like 20,000 comments about Biden. Can't wait for him to run. They can't name one policy that he's got an opinion about.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's ridiculous. Like, how can you? It's the same thing with Hillary. It's like, why would you vote for her just because she's a woman or just because she associates with somebody? Yeah. You don't know anything about her politics. That's why I personally voted for Trump, because I actually did the research. I wasn't a big Trump supporter until I actually figured out what he stood for. It's like, why would you vote just because he was Obama's president? That would be like me voting for Pence just because he was Trump's vice president, It doesn't make sense.
It's not a knock on the presidency. Like when Obama was elected president, a lot of people by association, by color, voted for him, thinking that will automatically change the position in politics and in the presidency. And I think people just do a lot of things by association without doing the research behind it. They just go along for the ride, so to speak. And we had a discussion on one of our previous podcasts, Naomi, Solomon and I, and others. For the similarities, they just tend to go along with the ride. But if you ask most of them, a lot of them don't know the platforms that go on in the politics. They just, so and so's voting. Yeah, I trust them. Therefore, I'm by association.
Well,
along with that.
With that, going off of that, there was a lot of buzz that the Democrats were pushing for a 16-year-old minimum voting age. Mm-hmm. Like 16, if you can't buy liquor, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. That's how I feel. Like you can't even dictate your curfew.
Exactly. Like I agree with you 100%. If you're still living with your parent and you ain't got a W-2, don't vote.
And I hate that, and I hate to like be that person, but I follow a lot of young Republicans who are like 18, 19, and they are so right. It just makes me sick how right they are. They are so right-winged that they don't see issues within the party in the GOP. The Republicans have issues, okay? But they are so blinded because they're so young. Everything is just like, it's almost like brainwashing. And I try to say to them, hey, listen, I get it. You know, I love the Republican Party. I did a little bit of work for them, but you can't sit here and say this, that, and the third is right, because it's just not. You're too young. You've never had a job. You've never paid any bills. You've been sheltered. You've never experienced real life. So what gives you the right to speak on these things like healthcare when you're still covered until you're 21 under your parents? You don't even know what goes into healthcare. You don't even know what a copay is, honestly. Like,
well, with saying that, do you think a lot of candidates will weigh in on the youth voter if that was to happen?
They're gonna exploit them like they're exploiting the people who came out of prison in Florida allowed to vote. They're exploiting the naive aspect of it.
Yeah.
Well, it's a classic tactic for both parties to try to find new voting pools. I mean, when you think about it, the Democratic Party has always used, ever since the inception, has always used immigrants as a way to gain control. I was watching Denise D'Souza's most recent documentary, and it talked about how when immigrants from Europe, they would always be like, hey, vote for this guy, vote for him, vote for him. It's like they kept pushing it because they kept telling all these stories, or they kept pushing propaganda on these immigrants who either were completely ignorant, which I'm not saying not all immigrants are ignorant, of course.
Yeah,
so what I'm saying
right. Some don't have education.
One at the time. And it's kind of like how I talked to this one woman. She's from the Congo. Now, it's called the Democratic Republic of Congo, and people, and she does not vote, and she voted Democrat when she was allowed to vote in the United States, only because it was the same name as the party that she grew up with. Now, then once you start realizing what their issues were, she started to realize, no, I don't agree with these people. Just because we share a name does not mean that we agree. It's starting to like, because now since the majority of Democrats are controlling our education system, our high schools, middle schools, and even worse in our colleges, which is where most of the brainwashing has occurred, of course they're going to try to lower the age, because now that they're realizing they can't use immigrants or illegal immigrants as power to get the vote, they're going to try to find another route, try to manipulate our nation's youth. It's happened in almost every country where socialists and left-wing political leaders have done it. I mean, Hitler's youth, for God's sake. I mean,
yeah.
It's like basically, and I actually did a hashtag where left or modern Democrats are German brown shirts, which those are people who would walk into parties, walk into conventions, walk into debates, and break them up and cause distractions, just like all these protesters are doing. And just imagine how terrible it would be if those same people who are college students are 16 and they think they have the right to vote at 16 and they think that their voice matters. Not saying that it doesn't matter, but when you give that much power to a person who has no real world experience,
it's going to be mayhem.
And to add to that, I think if that were to happen some kind of way, I think they would leverage towards what their parents' idea of the candidacy should be, because they don't want a distraction within the household. So if dad's a Democrat, he's particularly strong on a certain candidate, but by relation, they're just going to go along with the ride, so to speak, I would think,
And I think that when we look at 16 being an ideal age, my biggest question is why now? That's my biggest question. I think that so many people have come out and said they don't vote. That's been an issue. And a lot of people are saying left and right, We need a third party system, a real one. And so we have candidates like the Starbucks guy, is it Starbucks guy or Amazon guy? Starbucks guy. We have candidates we've got candidates like Starbucks guy coming out and saying, hey, I'm going to shake it up. I have the money to do it. No one's going to stop me. I can't be bought because I have the money. And it's kind of for both parties are looking at it like, oh, this is a threat. The only way to counteract this middleman from taking our votes is get more voters in. We're kicking the immigrants out the country. Where are we going to get the votes from? Oh, there we go. 16-year-olds. And the girl we had on here, I think Charlotte's 18. We had somebody on here who was like 17 once. I think it was her friend or it was her, but they said that in school, every time like things are brought up, all the teachers immediately get hostile towards them. They cut them off. And it's a battle almost. Like you're not allowed to have that mentality that anything but Democrat is right, which I think is hilarious because my 10-year-old, her teacher, he's a really cool guy, always wears like a leather jacket. And he literally tells her all the time, I love the way you think. You just are just a different type of thinker, because she goes in there wearing a Blexit shirt and she can tell him what it is. And she says, hey, my mom was telling me about this new abortion law. And he's like, what? And she's like, well, I'm a female. I need to know about these things and, how this could affect me. And he's like, wow, more kids need to think like you. They need to be more aware, So he's the ideal teacher, I would say. Supportive of any view, encouraging of thinking outside the box. Like he tells her to read different philosophies by different people from time. And he really encourages her to have a different perspective on life. Whereas a lot of teachers would be like, no, you don't need to be reading that. That's for high schoolers, or don't worry about that. Or you shouldn't wear that shirt. She wore a Trump hat. And he was like, cool hat. Yeah, he was like, cool hat, Gia. And he let her keep it on the whole time. But the minute she went in the hallway, one of the other teachers was like, you can't wear that in here. So it just goes to show the different mindsets of how our youth can either be built up or swayed to one side. And I always tell my daughter, listen, no, they work for me. Okay. I pay school taxes. I'm their boss. They're not going to dictate to you what you can or cannot wear or say, because that's your First Amendment right. And exactly. I think if more parents took that approach with their kids, we wouldn't be so scared of a 16-year-old voting age. Because I would say if my daughter was 16, I trust her to vote the right way because I know how I've raised my daughter. But a lot of people don't even talk politics with their kids. So,
and that's because a lot of them, and not to cut you off, it's just that a lot of them don't comprehend it.
Oh, yeah.
This is what we've been talking about in previous shows, is that a lot of them don't do that background research. By association, I think a lot of people vote. You get especially, it's not about the Democrats per se. It's just simply that they, collectively they think a certain demographic should vote as a Democrat, and you'll see them come to certain neighborhoods, and it's directed on purpose that way. They'll come to certain environments where they know the demographics is predominantly maybe Black or whatever, and stimulate the Democratic vote. So yeah.
And it's not just that. Like I've said before, I want to analyze the pop culture and the media. They did an episode on Blackish when it came to voting, and
I've seen
on one episode, I forget the actor or the character's name. It's basically the grandmother on the show. She's teaching her young daughter how to dress fashionably when voting, and it wasn't about. And she wasn't teaching her how to vote based on issues, just what to wear while voting. And during the episode, the little girl had the grandma fill out a questionnaire. And her grandmother kept saying, always vote for Democrat, honey. And of course, like I said, this is Blackish. This is about Black culture and Black perspective on issues.
That's a good show.
Left-leaning, of course. But at the end of the episode, when they finished the questionnaire, they thought that she was Trump because she agreed with so many of his policies. So it's kind of like, it's not, like you said, it's kind of like they're going to push that mentality onto the 16-year-olds. It basically adds more power to Democratic households. It's going to encourage them to have more children, which means by the time they hit 16, that means their households are going to have more influence on the political party, like you said.
Right. There's no independence in the voting age for a 16-year-old vote. It's just they're going to go by with the family. What's
well, my thing is, how do we as a country say you're not mentally intelligent enough to buy alcohol and behave in public while drinking, but you're mentally intelligent enough to help decide the leader of the free world.
Exactly. I agree 100%. It's like, unless you're graduated from high school, and I feel like if you need a GED, is what I think you need. I mean, and I've met some really smart 13-year-olds and met some really dumb 90-year-olds who should not be allowed to vote. But if you have a GED or have a high school diploma, I say go ahead and vote. I mean, 16 may seem a little bit young, but like you said, your daughter's not, like you said, 10 years old, right? And so she's very well informed. She's very intelligent. 10 years old, way too young. But if she were to go and get her high school degree, get a GED,
be emancipated, basically, almost, like, you know.
Exactly. You basically are able to get a W-2, because once you get that degree, you get a W-2, you get a job, you experience the real world a little bit, and then at least then you have some idea of how you want to vote.
I agree.
And you may be still influenced by your family, because I certainly was. I was definitely, and my mother is very right-wing. She was a big Bush supporter. She loved both terms, voted for him twice, and she always voted against Obama. And a lot of her views do affect me. But as I grew out of her, as I became an independent adult, and I actually started experiencing the world and actually started researching things and actually started pursuing my own views and researching, I started to realize, and this was when I was 18. Now imagine if I was like 16 and I was able to get out of the house.
Republican.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I wouldn't even have heard of a libertarian before. I didn't even know that would even existed when I was growing up. In fact, I never even interacted with anybody outside of a WASP household, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant household. And I never interacted with anybody from any other religion, hardly any other ethnic group, unless they happen to be Christian. So it was an eye-opening. At 16, you're still trying to figure out your own sexuality at that point. So how can I trust you unless you actually have proven that I can trust you? So it's kind of like proof that you are intelligent enough to vote. Go get a job. Even if the kids can still get jobs at 16 in some places, right?
Yeah, no, they can get a worker's permit.
Exactly. So if you can work and you get that paycheck and you see how much of your paycheck gets taken out in taxes, then you can be able to vote on how you can spend my tax money, because now your money's being taken.
I agree. We're gonna move to the next. Going off of this to the next topic. So today at 1 p.m. it was announced that Joe Biden and Stacey Abrams were both talking about running.
Yep.
Now Solomon is very vocal about Abrams, which is why I thought he was going to be on tonight. But I guess something came up. He did a couple shows on her. She should not be allowed to run. Okay. No. Just off of how she acted when she lost. And she demanded recounts, and she refused to, say, "Oh, I'm 7." Like, she's a lunatic at this point. And I hate to say it, but she's the number one Black person screaming, "It's because I'm Black that this happened." And that's what pisses me off the most about her. Even if she's very qualified, she exploits Black people by constantly making excuses that are race-based for why things don't work out in her favor or why things occur.
Exactly. If you want to speak on the time.
I was just going to say, from what I was just researching here, she was heavily recruited to run for the Senate for 2020, but she decided to throw her hat in the presidential ring.
Like, where does that make sense? That makes no sense. So you just going to skip a whole body of government to move on up when you couldn't even win at the lower level? You couldn't win that, and you think because you did you did a State of a Union BS speech that they gave you.
It was like 12 people who attended it.
They made it look big. Yeah, I know. Like, Abrams, let it go. Some things just aren't meant to be. Like,
I really hate her so much because she exploits the Black community so much. There were so many Black people who wanted her to win simply because she was Black. They didn't look at any of her policies. Like, I watched or listened to this news story to where there was a whole bunch of Black Panther, Black supremacist groups, or pro-Black and all that. They were marching down the streets with their AK-47s and their assault rifles and their machine guns. And I'm thinking to myself, she is wanting to pass a bill to where you're not allowed to have those, and yet
you're supporting her.
Yeah, and you're still supporting her, and it's crazy because I got into an argument. I got blocked by a lot of people over this issue. Like, how can you be pro-gun and pro-Stacey Abrams when she clearly stated that she wants to go into your home, have FBI and federal agents come into your home and take your guns? How can you be pro? It doesn't make any sense.
Later tried to recant that statement too.
I think Stacey Abrams understands by association very strongly that most blacks may not research or understand her platforms, but just by association of color. Just like when Obama was elected, people were shouting in the streets, they were running the streets literally talking about how it's a good day to be a black person, but don't know the particulars of the parties or what's going on those platforms. So I think she may bank on that maybe they're just ignorant to the particulars of the government and things like that. So that way, vote for me by association. I'm black and I'm this, and as you were saying earlier, Jack, that people just
and it's not just Stacey Abrams who bankrolled on that. It's like Hillary Clinton. She bankrolled on the fact that she was a woman and she was trying to get the women vote. And I'm like, yeah, it surprised her so much and then when Hillary Clinton lost, she blamed women's husbands for why, like, oh, they're submissive to their husband. I'm like, how? Okay, you claim to be a feminist, and you say that women are supposed to be smart, but yet when you lose, you want to blame dumb women for why you lost.
And I'm sorry, but what's wrong with being submissive to your husband?
Well, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with it. What I'm saying is like,
but the way she labeled women, to me, Hillary and I've gotten blocked by a bunch of people for what I'm about to say, but for me, you mean to tell me every stay-at-home mother is dumb because she's submissive to her husband because he generally runs the household? You mean to tell me every mother who chooses motherhood, who chooses to educate their kids in their home, and who doesn't contribute to the workforce is submissive? I mean, because her husband has to delegate, where the money's going? No, they just choose a different way of life. That doesn't make us any less intelligent. A lot of women I know didn't vote for Hillary because she didn't have anything intelligent to say. She was saying she had hot sauce in her bag trying to get the black vote. She was making racial comments on interviews, then backtracking, trying to get the racial vote. She was trying to take guns away. My husband has always voted Democrat, always. And the minute he heard that they were trying to take guns away, he was like, I won't vote Democrat ever again.
Exactly. I mean, my problem with the whole Hillary, especially with what you said, submissive, is that it's definitely a manipulation of language.
It is.
Here's my view on how women are. If your husband is the king, a wife is the advisor. Because an advisor is just as powerful as a king.
Right. It's not more powerful.
Exactly, because back in the old days, back in ancient times, the husband may have gone out hunting, fighting wars, worked in fields. What do you think women did all day in the household in ancient times? They didn't just sit around waiting for servants. Most households didn't have it. They worked hard. They had to figure out how to stretch out the meals, the food that they had to be able to run the household. The kings may have gone on to it and conquer new nations and new lands, but the women were the queens who helped run those nations. So the fact that Hillary said that women who didn't vote for her were submissive and to her husband, I'm like, honey, you don't know what a real woman is if you think that a woman is too dumb to vote for you. That you think that they're submitting. No, they are equals in the household. And yeah, there are some relationships where the male or the man is going to be a little bit more abusive, but that doesn't mean that all women who don't vote for you are stupid or submissive or weak. That means that they actually think,
But I will give it to her. She is right to a certain extent that some women are dumb enough to just follow the leader regarding their husbands. Like we talked about this in a show. I did a whole show off of this girl that I know attacking me for choosing to stay at home. Remember?
Yeah, I remember.
Good. She basically, like, I know this girl. She's a hood rat, but she got on me for being like she said something to the effect of women who stay at home are moochers and lowlives because they're
work and you got to be equal.
Yeah, and she was like, "You better get out there and work, or you're nothing." I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Don't confuse with you working with women who are in a financial position not to work. There's a big difference when you don't have to work and you choose to work, and then you have to work. You have to work. That's a difference, okay?
Yeah.
I choose to work when I feel like, but take care of my kids and make sure that they're being fed the right things, they're being taught the right things and things like that. But I'm educated. So don't confuse it with, something different. But she's the ideal Hillary voter. She's the voter that says, honey, when do I report to work? Honey, how much do you need for this? Oh, so you're going to vote for that? I'm going to do it. All she posts online is, my husband said this, my husband said that. She's the Hillary voter. She's the one that does that.
And the thing is, with that particular mindset, it takes away the nurturing of the child. You can make it to your job is just as important as the one going out getting the taxable income. So, I mean, it's an importance thing here where that particular situation, remembering that podcast, like you said, she has to do that in today's era. Your grandmother was a stay-at-home mother, but her responsibilities were very important, if not more important than your grandfather. In that era, and now things and times have changed where you got to have two jobs and you got to do this, you got to do that. And look how the children suffer when there's no nurturing and no leadership. I'm not saying that no one teaches their kids this or no one instills these values. But if
parents are lazier now than they used to be in regard to being.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's easy for parents to not educate their kids and just send them to school and they come home. Back then, you didn't have to send your kids to school. It was an option. No. So some people were actually teaching their kids better at home than say they would have been in the school system. But I think that for me, that's what made me turn Republican, just knowing that I'm so hands-on with how I run my kids' lives and their futures that I could never allow the government to control mine or allow people with views I didn't agree with to teach my children a certain way, to me, that goes into voting.
Well, you also have to be careful with that too, because like you said about teaching at home, though, it's kind of like we got to be able to have book smarts as well as street smarts. I feel like I was very book smart when I left my mother's house, but I wasn't very street smart. So we got to have that balance almost when we're raising our kids. Like when you were saying, Uncle Tommy, is like now that both parents have to work, and like you were saying, and is like that you want to work, and if you want to work, that's good. There's a difference between wanting to work and having to work, and then relying on it. But then it's kind of like if you don't have to work, that doesn't mean that you have to keep your kids from interacting with different viewpoints, and that's something that a lot of both sides, Democrats and Republicans, can fall into that trap of an echo chamber, where you turn your household into an echo chamber where it's only your views, your view only, the head of the household or heads of household, that's it. Like you were worried about how when they lower the age to 16, that's the thing that we got to worry about. Now, I'm not saying that the public schools have any right to tell me how to raise my kids, but they do exist to educate, because if we can't educate, not everybody can be an educator.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between education and pushing an agenda and propaganda and political view. Like school is just to give them the basics, not to push politics. The politics you either get in college or at home.
Well, and I think I agree with that. I agree with that because fortunately for me, I had a mother and a family who pushed street smarts as well as book smarts. They pushed both equally, if not more. They push street smarts more, and I think that helped me more long term. And I'm finding like with my daughter, I'm pushing that more now because I know she's intelligent, but she is lacking in that area. And I also noticed that because I send my kids to Catholic school, that there are certain things I have to remind her of. Like you said, you don't want to push them one way. Like I had to actually tell my daughter, listen, they're pushing, don't ever get an abortion. They're pushing, this is not the Catholic way. You can never get married and if you're out of a Catholic church, you won't be buried, and yada, yada, if you commit suicide. These are not the end all be alls. If you make a mistake and feel like this choice is beneficial to you, you're not going to be crucified for it. Okay. God forgives. I don't care what they taught you. This is it. This is just a foundation to help build your beliefs. You don't have to be Bible Belt by the book every day, because no Christian is. And any Christian telling you that's the right way, they're wrong. You know, it's kind of like Mormons. Mormons, they do that to their kids. They kind of brainwash them almost and seclude them from society in other times.
Not just Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, even radical militant atheists. I mean, the militant atheists, I feel like, are the worst religion, because they try to justify it by saying, "Oh, secularism and secularism this, secular that." I mean, you're basically replacing one religion to another, and basically, and I feel like this is definitely an issue about culture almost, because the public schools, they're pushing one culture over another when it's not supposed to push any culture. They're supposed to give them the basic facts, teach them mathematics, teach them how to read, teach them how to write, teach them maybe basic history, but don't give them a propaganda political version. Just give them the facts. Like, okay, Christopher Columbus sailed in 1492. That does not make him, and yes, he did terrible things. And I mean, that's a whole nother debate, but I'm just saying, like, okay, Western imperial, to make an argument against Western imperialism or against capitalism just because Christopher Columbus was an evil man back 600 years ago, you know, it's like, don't make everything political and don't make everything religious. If it's a public school, make it to where it's just basic, pure, simple education, and then leave the finer details for higher learning, like high school and maybe and definitely college, you know?
Absolutely.
But a lot of people are saying now, especially in the media, regarding these politicians and their views on the school system, they're saying that now money management, financial planning classes need to be implemented instead of like algebra 2 and trigonometry. They need to be putting in how to file your taxes, you know, how to do this. And I'm glad that now we're at the point where this is a talking issue, because this should have been happened. I don't know if it's just certain
too. So it's not, that's just like prison reform. This is bipartisan, you know, and I just have to say it.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I agree with you 100%, because I wish, because I was homeschooled a lot when I was growing up, and I wish that I went to a public school, and I wish that if I went to public school, I feel like because the plus side to homeschooling is I have a lot of stuff. I could be able to take care of myself. I know how to cook. I know how to take care of a lot of things.
Also for high school. And I don't know if this is just a public school thing, but I learned about financial planning and all that in homeschool. I mean, so I don't know if that's just that or you know, whatever.
Well, I think the distraction of being in public school, I think my personal view on that is that homeschooling, you get more concentrated into the academic part.
Definitely. I'm neither pro nor anti. You know, I agree 100%. Mm-hmm. So it's go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think with the distraction, because you're going to have that social structure around you, and it's enough pressure on you at public schools to try to fit in or be with the popular kid or this kid and that thing. So, you know, you got those dynamics to work with, whereas with the homeschooling, you got more of a concentrated education, I think.
Exactly. But then again, not everybody is good at educating their kids too. So they do need to have, you know, because my own mother, I basically had to teach myself on a lot of mathematics and sciences, because my mother, she dropped out of high school, but I had to teach myself. She basically learned from a book and got the teacher's guides and stuff for homeschoolers. So it wasn't like she understood it. She just knew what the answers were, which ones were correct, but she couldn't explain to me why this answer was correct and why this answer was wrong. She just told me this is what the answers were. So as far as like teaching them basic skills, I would have loved if my mother had taught me, or even if I went to public school and they taught me how to sew, told me how to cook better meals.
I think where did you grow up at?
A car, you know?
Where did you grow up at?
I grew up in Arkansas, actually. I
think that might be a state thing, because where I went to boarding school before in middle school, but when I went to boarding school, we had family planning, which was we're basically don't have sex. This is the consequence. We had cooking class once a week. I learned how to cook there. We had sewing class. I learned how to sew there. I'm like one of the only people that can sew at my age. You know, they had an automotive shop. They had a screen printing shop. So
yeah, exactly. That was, you said it was a boarding school, right?
Well, it was kind of, yeah. So I guess certain environments offer those opportunities, but isn't it, and I hate to say it, but isn't it more of the parents' job to teach you those things? Like my grandmother taught me how to sew before anyone, you know, and my mother, similar to your mom. She dropped out, as well. But my mom, she was good at math like nobody's business. She just wasn't good at reading and spelling, So that was that. I basically, I did the same thing regarding homeschool. I was pretty much like just relying on what I knew and, my initiative to get me to the end. And I graduated with a 3.9. So I guess it worked. But, unfortunately, we're in a day and age now where parents, like I said, they're kind of lazy, and it's easier to go to work and send your kids somewhere than it is to learn material.
It goes back to the 2-job family.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what I was about to say. It's like if both parents are working, I work 2 jobs. I work a day job and I work a night job. If I had a child right now, I would not be able to spend as much time as I want with them because I'll be so busy all the time. And 2, I'll be so tired. I can't educate them on those basic needs like sewing, filing taxes, or even just to fix a car, which I still don't know, but I would love to learn, of course. And it's not every household, and not everybody has different talents. I mean, my dad, he's a car guy. He's a mechanic. He's a handyman. He could be able to build anything and do it. My mother, she's more financially smart. Now, she's like not trigonometry and geometry smart, but she does very good in finances. And they both kind of taught me some things that I needed to know, but they weren't very talented. If I just relied on one of them for my education, which a lot of households do rely on one parent, those skills that one parent has can only be passed on to another. My parents are divorced, so I had to rely on my mother for education. But it wasn't until I left her household and I actually got to know my father a little bit more, and he actually helped me learn more about car care, do a little woodworking and such, and to where I learned more about that. But like I said, it also goes back to, and like I said, if you don't have time, especially nowadays, most people have 2-parent households that are working. So the schools can at least be able to provide a learning environment. Like I keep saying, don't push political agendas or religious agendas. And if they teach kids the basics with math and reading and sciences and stuff, but also help them. If they want to learn how to sew, those options should be available for the kids. And not just the kids, the parents.
I found one of the biggest distractions with schools when they had that prayer issue that was supposed to be mandatory with schools. I thought that would totally derail the educational aspects with students because now you have this big issue about prayer.
Once the Bible taught in school, right?
Yeah.
Well, some states are issuing it to be taught as more literature rather than religious dogma. And like in Texas, they're trying to make it to where the Bible can be taught in class, but as either a historical document or as a literature, not dogma or law, but as a way of studying a culture, kind of like how you could study the Quran. And I have nothing against prayers in schools myself, especially if it's a private institute. I think it's more like you need a moment of silence. You can pray, you can just sit there quietly, meditate, like forever how long you want to do the Pledge of Allegiance, or like, okay, let's like 20 minutes of.
They don't teach that in school anymore. You don't do the pledge anymore.
Oh yeah, well I know. Well, I'm just saying, bring that back. I want that to be brought back. But I'm just saying, it's just like, but like I'm saying is like, have that time to where if a bunch of kids who happen to be Catholic, who happen to be Jewish, who happen to be Muslim, they should be allowed to pray. Especially Muslim students. There are many Muslim students, and I have known many of them myself, who are pro-American. They're more American than I am, which is crazy. But they're very devout in the traditions, like praying 5 times a day, praying towards Mecca. They should be allowed in schools, public schools at least, to be able to have the opportunity to practice their faith, just like in the real world. In private schools, though, like you said, you went to a boarding school, correct? And you said that your daughter's at a private Catholic school, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a private institute. So it kind of makes more sense that if they're going to push that agenda, but they still need to allow some freedom, like maybe not mandatory church attendance, but, at least understand, look, you are a predominantly Catholic, predominantly Muslim, Buddhist, whatever. You're gonna, you need to learn how to work with those kinds of people anyway, but you shouldn't have to be forced to practice that faith. If you know what I mean?
Was there a particular prayer set for something? When the issue was blown up in the media about praying in schools, was there a particular denomination that they wanted you to prayed with, or I really don't know the particulars of that.
I would assume it'd be Christian.
I don't think it's like, I think it's mostly Christians, like, you know, like the Bible being banned from school. So it's mostly the Christian denominations that are trying to push prayer back.
I'm on the fence though. Honestly, I'm on the fence because I just feel like we can't, and I hate to say it like this, but we can't trust teachers to give a unbiased view of a history lesson on the Bible or any other thing, because like there are some people, it's a fact, the Bible is man-made, you know. So am I gonna believe that when they're speaking about the historical facts of the Bible, they're gonna reiterate that? A lot of people won't even touch on that. They won't touch on that certain parts of the Bible were written by a woman under a fake name because women weren't allowed to hold that power. They won't touch on that. And if they're not going to touch on it fully, I don't want it talked about at all. That's my job as a parent. I'll pay a private school, yada, yada. But I do think that small parts of it should be introduced. There should be electives. Like when I went to boarding school, we had a public school who offered family planning and cooking as well. And it was electives. You could pick which one you wanted. Religion should be an elective. If you'd rather take religion than take an extra PE, that should be your choice, you know? And I think it should kind of be like that.
I agree. It's like, and not just, and like I said, it's like, I agree with you. It's like, it's going to be hard to not have an unbiased opinion. My own religious view is complicated at the best of times. So it's kind of like, and nowadays, especially with left-leaning politics, it's kind of like it's very anti-religious or at least anti-Christian. Yeah. So it kind of, it worries me if they do hire a teacher to teach Bible electives, whether they're going to get a very devout Christian who thinks that the word is literally the word, not an interpretation, not metaphorical, literal, God just went click. And, you know, or if on the opposite side, we got this anti-religious bigot, basically, who basically calls Christians stupid and ignorant. Richard Dawkins, basically. And that's something we got to be careful about with education.
You want to know what's funny? It's a funny story that kind of like relates to this. Uncle Tommy's going to crack up when I bring this up. So my daughter was in Catholic school, and this is like before we moved to this area for the school, and she had to get her she had to get baptized. And so I hadn't baptized her because I'm a believer that you should be of age and willingly baptized, not by force at birth. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to get baptized as well because I feel that I need to do that to be closer to God. And the guy who was baptizing me was my now deceased uncle's pastor. And he went to this rinky-dink little church in the hood. And the pastor was an ex-con.
Yeah. It was really
who used to be Muslim, and is now like the Christian pastor. And Uncle Tommy, there was me, my husband, my daughter, my mom, Uncle Tommy there, and he was saying all this stuff, and all you hear is Uncle Tommy. But why? But this? But who said that?
I was just being a bit inquisitive because it seemed to kind of contradict a lot of things they do, which is why you got to watch who you approach religiously. I think, especially, and again, reiterating with teenagers, you know, that I don't, with the voting thing and a whole ball of wax, I don't think that they're just prepped for anything like that, you know? So, yeah, it was a really colorful experience. I was questioning him. He got a little bit nervous. But I looked through psychological eyes at everybody anyway. But it was just
we knew it went left when he went to baptize me and he touched my boobs.
Yeah. You had on something tight at that. I had on video and your husband and I were looking at each other like, look, this guy's really just. I mean, he was just. I don't know how to say it, but aggressive would be an understatement. He was just really and under the guise of religion, I guess you could say, yeah, I got to put my hands on you and be this aggressive because I want to really put the spirit into you and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, boy, it's almost like a molestation, almost like a laugh kind of with him. It was I mean, you know, as you know,
but the one thing I remember is Uncle Tommy was consistently saying, because he was like, yeah, you know, the differences in the Quran and this, and Uncle Tommy was like, then why are you here? Like, you know, like, then how can you say you're a devout Christian if you just left Israel allegedly in, and you live your life this way, that doesn't align with Christian values, and he was kind of bringing that up. But I thought that was just like hilarious because up until then, I had never seen someone openly question someone in a church like he was doing it. Uncle Tommy was like really like,
it wasn't so much an attack at him.
It was an attack.
Just to try to get a better perspective, because you have so many denominations going on, and you have so many people representing those denominations, and I think sometimes internally it's for their own purpose in some places. I remember your Uncle Greg was kicked out of church for his tithes. If he didn't pay 10% of his salary, he was asked to leave the church, and he was disgruntled about it. I mean, he was really pissed. And I said, I didn't know that religion had to be based on monetary distribution in the church or what you made and all of these things. And they asked him to leave because he said at that point he wasn't generating enough income that he could sacrifice 10% of your tithes. I had another friend who had his gas cut off, and I said, well, you're working 2 jobs. And he said, well, the church gets theirs first. And I said, well, will the church help reinstate your gas? Because it's wintertime, you have gas heat. So what are you going to do? Sit there like an Eskimo, freezing to death while the church gets there? And it's not a knock on the church or any religion or any denomination.
I just don't recall, like I was saying, there's man-made aspects of the Bible. I don't recall Jesus saying, I'm going to go ahead and grant this miracle. By the way, drop a 50 in the hat, on the way out.
I agree with you. It's like modern religion. And to me, like I said, my religious views are complicated. I kind of subscribe as a theistic agnostic. I think there is a God. I just don't think that one religion is maybe not true, but definitely they all have a hint of the truth. But I do prescribe more with Christianity, or at least monotheism, the Judeo-Christianity at least. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and again, back to the subject of educating kids on the Bible or any religion, really, it's kind of like we got to make that distinction to where, maybe even, this might even be one of those weird things where we're going to have to come up with some weird compromise to where we don't maybe not insult people, but definitely try to make it to where you're not pushing one agenda. Be like, okay, you got the devout believer teaching this class on one day, and you got the non-believer teaching this class on on another day, so both students could learn from different perspectives on the same faith. Because as going back to Muslims, like you guys were talking about, there are most people don't even realize there's more to Islam than the Sunnis and the Shiites and all that. There's many different denominations. There's even denominations in Islam that believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. There's some that believe they're basically religious atheists that kind of prescribe to Buddhism a little bit, or a mixture of Buddhism and Islam. So it's kind of like it's hard to do an education, whether it's religion, social aspects, or even common sense stuff like filing your taxes. It's kind of like we got to figure out a way to balance it. And it's crazy that, I mean, my mom told me years ago that they had Heck, they had Auto Shop when she was growing up. She grew up in the 50s and 60s. So she knows that this stuff was popular back in that time. This was a requirement. I mean, hell, they had gun ranges at some schools, for God's sakes. They had rifle clubs. So, and my dad, when he was still in school, they had a gun threat, and they pulled their guns from the gun rack on their truck. These were 16-year-old kids. This was hunting season. They had a gun threat. There was like people threatening to shoot up the school. They had 16-year-old kids getting their rifles out of their trucks. This is the Deep South, mind you. So they're guarding the school, and it's like, and they didn't have a gun shooting that day. And these were schools. Now, he didn't have a gun range at that school, as far as I knew, but they still allowed their students to carry a rifle, a hunting rifle, which is just as good as an AR-15 when you know how to use it. So it's like, we have this mentality, this cultural change, and it's like in a lot of ways, we're going full circle when it comes to our culture. Like this newest generation of kids growing out is considered the most conservative. It's even more considered more conservative than Reagan era, or during the Reagan era. Really? It's because actually, yeah, it's like it's increasingly more and more like kids like under the age of 18, 20 are becoming more and more conservative because they're starting to realize some of this stuff is bullcrap, but there's still a lot. I mean, it's a growing movement, and it's not like during the 90s and early 2000s where it's just like pushing a left-wing agenda or a left-wing political agenda. Now, social issues, gay marriage or religion or abortion, that's another issue altogether. But when it comes to like pushing a political party over another, it seems like in the 90s and early 2000s, they're pushing more for Democrats, especially under the Bush administration, when everybody was really mad at Bush before the war in Iraq. And even I was, and I hated Bush during those 8 years. I couldn't even vote. I wish I could. But now that I'm an adult, I look back and I'm like, he was an idiot, but he had some good points. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like as with schools and education, with this lowering of the age limit, it's basically a way to control people and try to get more power to one party versus another. And even if Republicans do agree to lower the age to 16 or even 17, it's kind of like you're just trying to get more power. It's basically like the three-fish compromise, because it's basically because basically in order to get voting power back in those days, it's like every person, even if they couldn't vote,
right?
And now this is like full-blown three-fish law all over again. They're lowering the age just so that way they can have more influence for one party versus another. And it's just, and to me, it's just the fact that they're focusing on an age limit, and rather than not, if you want to lower the age limit, then educate these kids so they can be well informed. Like, they need to prove their intelligence, prove they're smart, prove that they are politically minded, and they're not just following what their parents are telling you, that they actually can prove their intelligence, whether it's religiously, economically, socially, or even scientific, if we're talking about global warming, or even gender studies, which that's a whole other argument right there. You understand? It's like,
I'm going to cut you off, sorry, to go into the last topic before we end the show. So it kind of piggybacks off what we were saying regarding, the two-parent household and how they really, in a day like today, they don't really have an option. Well, the newest presidential candidate, Andrew Yang, #Yang.
That is so entertaining.
I did not make that. All right, I just wanted to, this is
I looked it up. I was just like crazy.
Yeah, he chose this hashtag because they said the news, everyone is saying that Generation Y, I don't even know who Generation Y is. Maybe it's my daughter's. I don't know who that is. But Generation Y loves this guy. They love him. And his main thing that he is being known for is that he believes that he's going to create a system where Americans have a minimum income of at least $1,000 a month.
Wow.
No.
I like to see him try.
He would like to find companies that harass you with robocalls, so they'd be getting fines. I'm okay with that because I'm sick of the damn robo.
Is he a Silicon Valley guy?
Yeah.
For America thing. Yeah.
I think so. I haven't looked. Let me read the description off his website. Hold on. So he says he'd like to find the companies that harass you with robocalls. He wants to force the NCAA to pay its college athletes. Great. Those kids work hard. Good. Let's pay the kids. Right?
Yeah.
Where's the money coming from? But okay. Are they going to pay them directly? The colleges pay the kids? How does that work? I'd like to know more about that. Modernize voting so that you can cast ballots from your cell phone. No. That's going to be a lot of illegal activity occurring. Creating.
Catch up to that. I'm not going to support that. Right now, cell phones can easily get hacked. I'm not going to support that.
I'm not supporting that at all. That's just a way for them to BS votes. Okay.
Yeah.
Create a system that ensures Americans have an income of at least $1,000 a month for every American. So it says, it says before Yang graduated from, he's a lawyer. Before Yang graduated from Brown University in Columbia Law, he entered the 2020 playing field, the 44-year-old Venture for America CEO, a fellowship program for recent college graduates that places them at startups to prepare for their own entrepreneurial endeavors. It says that he says this is a quote, the unfortunate truth is that most Americans think our government has been failing us for decades. And that is why Donald Trump is president today. Okay, it has. Yep. Oh. Let's go back to what I did a Reagan clip on my show. Reagan, this is when Reagan was running, okay? He says, and I quote, people think welfare works. If welfare works, why does every year it get higher and not lower? because it's failing us. The government is failing us.
I agree with you 100% on that. It's just the only way that's $1,000 a month, it's basically Social Security. It's just wrapping it up as something completely different. So are you going to go ahead and give people $1,000 a month on top of Social Security, or are you just going to go ahead and just, it's just basically welfare repackaged as something else? And then there's no.
Yeah, because it says by the age of 18, $1,000 a month, no strings attached, paid for by a new tax.
But
benefiting most from automation.
But wait, let's keep in mind, Ireland does this. My mentor is Irish. He's from Ireland. They do this, but they do it in a different way. So basically, originally, you could come to Ireland. People would have their baby in Ireland because you get a child allowance. So that's how if you have a child, even if you have 5 or 10 kids, you get an allowance by the government every month. You pick it up at the post office. No questions asked.
Is that allowance for each kid, or is it as a collective?
Each kid. No, each kid. So Ireland has that. So this wouldn't be a new concept, but if we're saying everyone's getting $1,000, so when my kid turns 18, you're throwing $1,000 at her a month. Why would she try to work then?
Exactly.
Because
go ahead.
Basic income. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna touch on the rest of it real quick, then we can discuss. So it says, in addition to his unconventional ideas, he wants to provide free marriage counseling, offer a gun buyback program, and create a fund for local journalism. His campaign website outlines 77 suggestions in all. It says Harris and Booker's campaign websites, by comparison, detail 0 in specific terms so far. So when you go on Yang's website, he does go very much so into detail, a lot, which I'm not reading all of it, by how he's going to do some of this. It says that, a universal basic income regardless of work status called the freedom dividend. He said it would allocate every single American adult $1,000 a month, quote, putting money into the people's hands and keeping it there would be a perpetual boost and support the job growth and economy. He says Martin Luther King wrote about it in 1967. Quote, I am now convinced that the simplest approach will prove to be the most effective. The solution of poverty is to abolish it directly by a now widely discussed measure, the guaranteed income. Mark Zuckerberg has showed support for the idea, and it says that they want to try new ideas in terms of implementing this.
Wouldn't that relax the work structure for someone trying to go after getting not only just a job, but a career? If you have $1,000 a month, you're going to have some lazy people that says, hey.
It's going to cause stagnation.
It says the Scandinavian country launched a new Social Security trial in 2017, providing 2,000 randomly selected unemployed residents $640 per month, tax-free, at about half the 55% the amount of Finland's unemployment dividend. The allowance is barely enough to live on for the individuals tasked with paying rent. Researchers say it's reducing recipient stress and adding to their happiness. Okay, look, I'm going to just be blunt. I don't give a fuck about your stress and happiness. Okay?
Exactly.
Listen, I'm stressed out paying all these property taxes and school taxes and shit, and I'm still okay with going to work. No, that you give me $1,000, it's going straight back to the government and what I got to pay for taxes. Okay? Right. You might as well not even give it to me then.
Can I speak? It's just, and to me, to me, this whole $1,000 is just going to create stagnation. It's kind of like, what's the incentive to innovate? I'm hustling here. I got 2 jobs. I'm working for Walmart and I'm working for Bite Squad. I am working hard to get my money, to pay off my credit cards and to pay off my debt and to pay my bills. And yet you're going to suggest that, no, like you said, if this was like basically like a welfare for parents and such to help, which I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, especially if you're not making enough. Especially, I can understand, like you said, for Ireland. But he's suggesting that every adult gets one. There's no way we can even if you taxed 100% of every Fortune 500 company in the country, there's no way you could be able to get enough money to be able to support that. No way. $1,000 every month, you might as well just not tax people to begin with. That's the only way you're going to get a guarantee. That's the only way you're going to get guaranteed income. If you don't tax, I get like $200 taxed out of every paycheck just from one job.
Same here.
And I would like to hear his explanations where this money's going to come from. How did he arrive at these numbers?
Well, I hate to be like I
hate to be like pay for it.
I don't want to be racist, but I'm one of those people who I agree with a lot of people when they say Asians are smarter. They typically are. And they typically are. Like when I go to the doctor, I request an Asian doctor or an Indian doctor. I swear to God, I do it every time. My kid had a heart murmur. I took him to the cardiologist. I was like, no, if the doctor's not Indian like me or Asian, I don't want him seeing my kid. Just because statistically, Asians perform better in terms of medical. Okay, it just is what it is.
Well, that one's actually there's a reason for it. They have to perform because you heard the controversy about how they're giving Asians negative points in college acceptance.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to prove that they're just to be able to get. They have to be twice as hard. Okay, so basically, an Asian doctor who's maybe not be as smart as another one, or an Asian person is not going to be able to, because they're already in the negative.
Yep.
It's the same thing with white people.
The hardworking Asian doctor with my kid. Okay, so initially when I heard about this guy, I was like, he must be smart because he's Asian. But no, he's not as well-rounded. I'm all for creative new ideas, and I've been a firm believer. I don't vote on party, I vote on policy. So initially, things like giving free marriage counseling, I 100% agree with that. I 100% agree that anybody who wants to be a licensed psychologist has to do a certain amount of free hours a year, specifically to maintain their license. Let's say you got to do 200 hours a year in free counseling to married couples. Perfect. Definitely. Let's do it. Great, because that's going to take America back to where it was in the 50s and 60s, a good family unit, healthy communication, being marriage oriented, which we aren't now. We're not that, marriage isn't looked at like you need to be married. It's good for your family. People get divorced every day. It's like going out of style or something. So I agree with that. I agree with gun buyback programs. I agree with that. But I don't know how I feel about this imaginary money coming out of left field. And he has 77 other ideas. That's a lot. Like, he's had a lot of time.
We might have to do an episode just to discuss every single one of his ideas.
Because I really want to hear his platform on how that works.
I'm going to hashtag Yang Gang.
All together. Yeah. I would love to hear that.
Let me see.
I agree on some issues. Go ahead.
The election, I think, because people first see the money. They don't think further on as to how this going to affect other people, especially family members or whoever, or how it's going to affect relatives or whoever, and actually, like you, me, and Naomi, go out and earn a living.
He's for Medicare for all. That's another thing. Let's keep that in mind. All right, here we go. Straight from his website, right? Brief overview. Let's see. Any adult. Okay, so it would be the freedom dividend is what it's called. $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year for every American adult over the age of 18. Mm-hmm. It says this would enable all Americans to pay their bills, educate themselves, start a business. I don't know where he's getting that this is going to help that, but start a business, be more creative, stay healthy, relocate for work, spend time with their children, take care of loved ones, and have a real stake in the future. It said any change to the freedom dividend would require a constitutional amendment. It would be illegal to lend or borrow against one's dividend. It said a universal basic income at this level would permanently grow the economy by 12.56 to 13.10%, or about 2.5 trillion by 2025. It would increase the labor force by 4.7 million people. I don't see how.
I don't see
it doesn't make any sense.
The labor force. That's ridiculous.
It says the most direct and concrete way for the government to help improve your life would be to send you a check for $1,000 a month and let you spend it however you want.
And you're going to have parents whispering into the ears of their 18-year-olds, you're going to get that check once you turn 18.
What you
that's going to be the house scheme. What about the dealer that's going to take his $1,000 and get a package, flip it, and contaminate?
Here's an idea.
With drugs.
Here's an idea. You want an extra $1,000 a month? Get rid of the taxes. I guarantee you, people are going to be way more happier. You get rid of the taxes. That's an extra $1,000.
he's
And
quoting
will it
Martin Luther
inflate with
King.
I'm sorry, will it inflate with the economy? I mean, what if, God forbid, something like this actually happens? Would it increase, or would the cost of spending, and has he weighed into those factors? Or
Exactly.
Well, he goes on quoting Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Tesla founder, Warren Buffett, Ronald Reagan, Barack Obama, Bernie Sanders, a couple Nobel Peace Prize winners, Richard Nixon, all saying that they've alluded to and have said specifically we need a minimum standard of living. None of them went this deep into it. So when you go further into his website to figure out how you'll pay for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing.
And to me, it's kind of like, and he's using innuendos. It's like he's using double talk to like push this along, because we already have all these programs in place. We have child welfare. We have.
Found it. Hold on. It says it would be easier than you think to implement it. Andrew proposes funding UBI by consolidating some welfare programs. There you go. And implementing a value-added tax of 10%. Current welfare and social program beneficiaries would be given a choice between their current benefits or $1,000 cash unconditional. Most would prefer cash with no restriction. A value-added tax is a tax on the production of goods or services a business produces. It is a fair tax, and it makes it much harder for large corporations who are expert at hiding profits. A VAT is nothing new. No, Thailand has a VAT, but I'll give you this. It's a way around that VAT, trust me, because I've experienced it going over there. It says that's how he's going to do it.
It's just double talk. It's just ridiculous double talk. It's like if you had to go through all that just to get that information instead of just coming up front and saying it, there's something wrong. There's got to be more to it than that. We have Social Security. We have welfare. We have child support. All these programs. We have food stamps, for God's sakes.
Right.
It's all this stuff adds up.
Have you seen the movie Precious? Have you seen that movie Precious?
No, I haven't.
Oh, yeah. That's my wife's favorite movie.
Oh, why? First of all, what? Why is that her favorite movie? So depressing. Second, just to touch on it, Precious is a perfect example of why this would be terrible, terrible. Precious' mother, for those of you who haven't seen it, encouraged her to play poor and to have more kids and this, that, and the third to get her welfare money. All she cared about was her welfare money. And so now he's saying, I'll give you a choice. Wow, if you're going to give me a choice between maybe getting $400 a month and having to redo this, that, and the third and food stamps, instead you'll give me $1,000, you damn right I'm not going to work anymore. Or I'm going to make sure I only work at McDonald's or, yada, yada to get it.
And not just that, it's like Tyler Perry even touched on that. You ever saw the Good Mothers Club?
No, I never saw that.
Okay, there's this scene where one of the mothers, she's dropping her kids off at a babysitter. And the babysitter's complaining, like, why are you working that job? You can get a good $2-3 grand if you just go on welfare and all that. I'm like, no. It's like, are you kidding me? That's not the point of her working. The point of working is that you get a job and you actually build something. You actually feel like you earned it. I mean, that's one of the things that I love about our country is that you work for something, you earn it. This welfare, I mean, I can understand, like you said, for Ireland, as a form of government assistance, everybody needs help every now and then. I'm not against that, but it already exists. Don't expand it. The problem isn't it's the Social Security and welfare is becoming a money pit to where you're throwing more money at a problem instead of figuring out what the problem is. It's kind of like, okay, you're throwing money at a car that for some reason keeps breaking down, and you're not understanding why it keeps breaking down. You're just having somebody to fix it, and they're not really fixing it.
I think it should be, if they're going to do something like this, it should be regulated. There are a lot of people who work a lot in our own welfare. Those people who report to welfare that they have a job should be given something like this. Because then it's really going, like there are people I know who work 40 hours who have to get welfare, because childcare is so expensive and it cuts down, so the welfare helps them. So this would be perfect for those people who are working and not overutilizing the system. But then there are people who don't work on purpose to get welfare and medical. And it's just like, are we really going to enable them? It comes back to the Reagan era of why is this not working? It's not working because we don't regulate it. There are states like Nevada who require you to bring in proof every month that you filled out 100 job applications to keep your food stamps. Then there are states like Pennsylvania who don't require shit, but every
well,
8 months
they used to require you to go ahead and do it at one point. And then people fill these particular applications out, or they come up with all kinds of angles and excuses. And I guess
100% agree.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like but when it comes to that application process, there are people who go, I'm not going through this, it ain't worth it. And that's when you filter out some of the BSers who don't really need it because they don't even want to take 20 minutes to fill out fake applications. You know?
And you're talking about the BSers. I mean, I heard this one story where one of my stepmother talked about how a person got Social Security stamps, because you can get Social Security, or not Social Security stamps, Social Security checks, just by filling out that you have a mental disability. This one person literally got on the desk of the person who decides that you're crazy enough or mentally disabled enough, got on the desk, pulled her pants down, and took a dump on the desk, and she gets a $700-800 check every month. And this woman is as sane as I am. Okay? Yeah, and she still got a check every month just to prove that she's crazy. And it's like, are you kidding me? I mean, I understand that there are people who are truly disabled. Those are the people, if you're raising a family or you truly are disabled, and you got to prove that you're disabled, or you have some disabilities, because those people do deserve help. But if you want an extra $1,000 a month, like I keep saying, get rid of the tax. Get rid of it. That's like that extra money will help revitalize the economy, because once you work for it, you're going to want more money. You know what I mean? You work for it, you're going to want to reinvest it or pay off bills. And once you pay off the bills, you'll be good. Because this whole $1,000 a month, that's just basically welfare for everybody. Now, some of this stuff I agree with him on, like marriage counseling, like you were saying. Trust me, I've been married for a few months now, and I understand why some couples go to marriage counseling. And it's like, okay, it would be nice if marriage counseling was free for newer couples, or, psychiatrists actually, kind of like how free health clinics, or require for doctors who work for clinics and hospitals to work in free health clinics before they can be able to keep their license, like you said.
I don't know if Andrew Yang is running as an independent or a Democrat, but looking at his policies, they align more with an independent's view. He talks about LGBTQ rights. He talks about, it's on here labeled like this, pathway to citizenship. Quote,
he's running Democrat.
He doesn't need to be running as a Democrat. He's clearly an independent at heart, because he talks about making them earn it to get citizenship. He then goes on to talk about equal pay, carbon fee and dividend, promoting vocational education. We all know that the Republicans are the main ones promoting that type of vocational training. He talks about early childhood education for all, legalizing marijuana, making Puerto Rico a state, value-added human-centered capitalism, reducing harm to children caused by smartphones, every cop gets a camera, the nuclear launch decisions. He is like, I will say, he took the time to really go into depth about a lot of his issues, which is smart. It's very intelligent. However, he's going to go over a lot of people's heads, because I'm just scrolling. It's like, shit, I didn't know we needed to know all this stuff. Like, I didn't think this was a thing. But I don't get why young people like him so much. Maybe because they want the $1,000 a month and they don't understand it. I don't get it.
The identity politics as well. I mean, this would be the first Asian president of the United States. He's actually the second Asian person to actually run for the presidency. There was another Indian. He was a Republican from Louisiana. I forget his name, but he ran for presidency back in late 90s, I think. And he didn't get on the ballot, but he was the first one to actually run, the first Asian American to run for president.
Going to get on the ballot. I can guarantee it, because, and I hate to be racist, Asians stick together. They do. Okay. Asians stick together, and he's capitalizing on the black vote also with the whole Yang gang. Black people love K-pop. That's something a lot of people don't know. Black people love K-pop. Yeah, they love K-pop like crazy and shit. So that's another thing. And then he sounds so educated. If you just scroll through his website, it's like, wow, he's talking about all this. No one else is.
I want to touch on something real quick with the UBI, Universal Basic Income. What I'm looking at here is he's saying it's a model providing all citizens of a country or other geographic area with a given sum of money, regardless of their income, resources or employment status?
Yeah, anybody. It's for everyone. Yeah.
It is that universal. Wow.
I mean, it's almost as bad as Cortez's plan that if you're not working and you are working, you get a paycheck. It's like the Green Deal. Remember, it's like, well, who refused to work? It even said it in the deal, refuse to work. I'm like, no, you have to work. I'm like, that's the whole point.
It should be something in there. I don't think it should be to anybody. If he's gonna do, I'm all for making everyone comfortable. I get it. And now that he says the VAT is used by a lot of countries. They implement that. A lot of them do. So it could be doable. It could be doable. But I'm not okay with just letting any time. So you mean to tell me all the homeless people are getting $1,000 a month? All of them? Everybody in Tent City and LA
and the working class is $1,000. This because those that's not working would just simply refuse, like you said, the homeless people just refuse to work compared to us taxpayers.
And now,
like that.
But he has something on there about the drug crisis, right? Oh, this is not going to help that. All those people in Tent City in LA with their 1,000, they're going to be shooting up left and right. Okay, exactly. It's going to be a whole crack error. It is.
Oh, not crack, heroin, that fentanyl stuff. It's just
they're cutting all the drugs now with all this crazy shit. There's going to be bodies dropping everywhere, and I hate. We live in Philly, okay, and they're trying to implement safe houses for needle users.
For heroin users, yeah.
Where you can go and shoot up heroin in a safe house that the state pays for, so you don't distract people on the street or get hurt shooting up. Okay, so
until
now
you find a body in one of those houses.
Yeah, like let you lay there and OD. You know, now you got $1,000 a month to do it.
They don't factor that in.
I think Canada did something similar, but it's basically supposed to be a place where you're supposed to detox, not to shoot up. It's basically a place where you can be able to, it's a free rehab, basically.
Oh, no, they're not trying to rehab anyone. They want you to safely have a place to shoot up. So they're encouraging it. It's just the dumbest thing. But I think we're going to end on that note. I think next Thursday, what I'm going to do is, because he's the most controversial candidate. I hate to say it. I don't think Abrams is even going to get on the ballot.
No, she is not.
Cory Booker just had, and I was going to touch on this, but we can touch on it another time. Cory Booker was backed by the LGBTQ community, and he had to put online that he was dating Rosario Dawson. And Cory Booker was actually in Philly a couple of days ago. A good friend of mine actually hosted an event for him. And I was like, this Oreo is out here in the Black community. Like, oh, I'm so Black. You're not really. Like, so you could be Black, but don't pander like you're from the hood. And there's a difference between being from the hood and a part of the Black community. There's a big difference.
But people don't look past the color, and that's what
they don't. But he's light skinned. He doesn't even count.
You know,
he's super light. He's lighter than us.
And to me, with him doing that, it's just like he's just fulfilling stereotypes. He's just pandering. He's just trying to make it seem like it's like, if you want Trump, this is why I love Trump. He's himself. This is why I feel like he actually won, because he's honest and he's himself.
Yeah.
Right.
Hillary was like exposed for being a fraud. She's fake. Everybody who voted for her, they're starting to realize the mistake. And people like Stacey Abrams and that man you mentioned, it's like you're putting them up front just to get a vote. And it's like, and people are waking up to that. And it's like, we're getting tired of the BS. Like Yang, you said he was like a CEO and a lawyer, correct? Right. And okay, back in the old days when this country was founded, we had silversmiths, blacksmiths, farmers. There's like maybe one full-time politician among our founding fathers. We had generals, we had soldiers, we had tanners, we got guys running bars.
Yeah.
These were people who actually worked for a living. And yeah, they happened to get elected after the revolution, big whoop, but they didn't, once they got elected out, they went back to working. These politicians nowadays, they don't work. At least with this Yang guy, I don't agree with him. I'm 100, no way. I'm not going to support that dividend you talked about unless he makes some required changes, make some compromises on that. Yeah. But I'm more willing to listen to him than I am Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders or Stacey Abrams.
Yeah.
Like at least, at least the one thing I will say about Cortez, AOC, at least she worked for 6 months. So she had kind of an idea for how the real world works, but not really. okay, I can respect her for that. She has some idea how to get a paycheck. That's it. But at least this guy has actually worked. He can't be bought, more or less. He actually can finance it. Trump actually financed pretty much his entire campaign. He's lost money since he's been in the presidency. He's lost wealth.
And even Starbucks guy, I like him. I don't necessarily like everything he's been saying, but I like him because he can't be bought. He actually established something from the ground up, and as a consumer, A, I love Starbucks, but B, I like that he's so environmentally focused. He's always trying to change the way he does things in terms of being safer, how much plastic he's using, things like that. So I like that, being like an eco-friendly type of person. I like that, but I want to see more Republican candidates or more independent candidates. I'm sick of this Bernie hippie. Like, I'm like a hippie, but I'm not as far gone as Bernie is. I'm just not. I just want to see more options. I need more options. I really do. I love Trump, and I'm a Trump supporter, and I'll vote for him. But if I had a Republican candidate that was anti-vaccine, very economic, like eco-friendly and things like that, worried about the economy more. Not to say Trump's not, but Trump focuses too much on certain things. Maybe someone who was a little more well-rounded, I'd be okay with that. I'd probably vote for them.
I agree. What about you, Tommy?
Well, I was thinking when she was talking about Trump, something just popped in my head, and it's going to sound really just off kilter. I think Trump would have made a good military strategist. I don't know why that popped into my head, but going on what you were talking about earlier, Jack, he's just really, he's straight no chaser. What you see is absolutely what you get. Yeah. And how can you not bank on something like that? He doesn't have all of these masks that a lot of politicians tend to wear when they're trying to solicit votes from society. What you see with Trump is what it is. Do I agree with everything with Trump? No, but a lot of things start coming up that I do jump on board with. Like I spoke on Tuesday about the wall thing when I had the incident with the guy from Haiti, and he was just really, his whole attitude is that he hates America. And it's not to really jump off the topic, but he really had me pissed. He was talking about how blacks are enslaved to white society because this America is white America. He's knocked women, especially white women. He went into this whole dialogue like this, and that Haitians are better and Haiti's better. And I said, you have social unrest in your country as we speak. February 15th of this year, the Department of Defense was warning Americans to not travel to Haiti because
Haiti's a piss poor country, right, which has ran itself into the ground. And no matter how many handouts they get, they'll still be pissed poor because it's the way that the mentality of the leadership, the mentality of the people, and then you factor in the hurricanes coming through and God trying to wipe them out, man. I don't see how they're still standing, honestly.
Right. And
it's like Puerto Rico is just like strong. Puerto Rico is strong, I got Latino relatives. I got people from Venezuela. I got people from Nicaragua, El Salvador. I got family from all across Central America, even South America. I got family in Peru. If they are a hardy people.
That's say people in Thailand, they work their asses off, man. They're hustling. Everybody's got to hustle in Thailand. People in China, they're hustling. Yeah. People in Haiti, I don't see the same mentality. I don't.
What rubbed me wrong, and that's why I made that my topic on the Tuesday show, is the fact that what immigrants do come here that don't respect laws and everything. Because one of the statements he stated was that he could commit crime. And he's a security guard, armed security guard. And said he could commit crime in America, go right back to Haiti and be free. And I had to have him say it twice. I was thinking, you don't understand laws and rules here, I guess.
Well, if he loves it so much, then why come here? I never got that. I never.
Well, he loathed it. He's saying Haiti is great. He loathed America. He thinks that blacks are just slaves. According to his philosophy, blacks are just still in slavery. We've been enslaved. That's the way that patch on your uniform. You work for a white company, because he was knocking white folks too. Like the companies, like the countries below Haiti. He said, "You're not a part of America. I'm a part of Haiti. Haiti is me," and all. And he went into this whole dialogue with it. So,
before we end, I'll just say that I had a guy like that, and me and this guy actually became real close friends. ironically, but he had initially contacted me on Instagram, combating every little thing I was saying that you're a slave to America because of the way you think. And I said, well, guess what? You live where I live, so you're a slave also. And I was like, you're an even bigger slave because you're Black. I'm mixed race, like, and I was like, and you've been in prison. So there you go. You're even more of a slave because you're a convicted felon. So you can't do shit. And then he said, well, I said, why don't you go back to Africa then, since you hate it so much here? And he was like, I think I am. I said, if you really felt that way, you would have already been there. So clearly you're either don't want to give up your freedoms that you have here to go back to Africa, or you're just all talk, which is what a lot of people are. Like, I'll give you Dr. Umar Johnson, very educated man. He's one of the biggest people who constantly say how much America is no good. If you feel that way, and he's building schools in Africa, I believe. You're building schools in Africa, just stay there then. What do you need to have a family here and a wife here for?
Why are you coming back? I feel you 100%. Same with like Colin Kaepernick, LeBron James, Whoopi Goldberg, all these Black celebrities who keep on complaining about how terrible this country or how racist. I'm like, you are living in a country where you're making millions of dollars either talking on talk shows, ironically like we're doing, or playing a sport which has no real life application. Now, don't get me wrong, athletes work hard, but these athletes and these celebrities, you don't work as hard as we do. You're not living paycheck to paycheck. If you can't balance your own money, then how the heck are you telling me what to do with my money?
I get so much shit from my husband because I constantly say my son is not going to be an athlete. My son's very tall for his age. My daughter's very tall for her age. They're not going to be athletes. No, I don't care how much money it is. Get a skill, get an education. You could be a doctor and make more than an athlete in your whole life, and you don't have to break a bone or kiss ass to the cameras for it. That's slavery to me. Being an athlete is now slavery. You're traded. You don't have an option on where you're going. You don't know when your money's coming or going. You have to abide by these demands. You can't be vocal about things. What are you doing then? It's not freedom.
Or if you are vocal, you have to basically agree with what the political alignment is of the team's owner.
Right. That's true. And that's what happened. Kaepernick was the sacrificial lamb because he decided to kneel down and went into all this. He was trying to get that demographic to jump on board with him and trying to be supportive and get their support. And look what the league did for him. He's not playing football anymore.
Well, look what they did to LeVar Ball's kids. LeVar Ball is the only Black guy to say, my kids ain't doing this unless you do that and you pay them this. And they told him, well, then they won't play. Only one of them's playing. He sent the other two international to play ball. And he started his own league that is now doing very successful. He released his own sneakers, and LeVar Ball is very outspoken in the sports arena about the politics of the league and how they demand you to do certain things. And if you don't do it, you're blackballed. You're not playing for the Lakers. You're not playing for this. You're going to be a bench warmer for the rest of your career, and I think that's a whole nother show about that. But I'm going to end the show today. I think this was good. If Jack, if you want to go ahead and pick a day that you want to come on, we'll give you the information to access it by yourself and to post. Mm-hmm. Just look forward on our Instagram, guys, the topics for his show, as well as like the times and the times he'll be on. And if he'll have any guests, that'll all be on. Check out Uncle Tommy's Tuesday show. I'm going to have to check it out because I didn't check it out.
Yeah, the anger. No, I'm good though. Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Yeah, you bring a great new perspective to the platform. Say it again.
I couldn't hear you. It was breaking up again.
I said you bring a great fresh perspective to the platform, something that like we really need. So this will be really interesting to see your
with a lot of theme, with the entertainment theme and things that he was talking about. That's really going to be stimulating for the audience. That's really going to be positive.
I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to see.
That's stimulating. That's what's exciting.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and end the live. Give me a second.